Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Says I'm live, so I'm going to be doing this live stream. Going to be streaming on Instagram as well as YouTube. We'll see how it goes, if there's any technical difficulties. But hopefully if there's difficulties in one, then the other will be working. We'll see about that. I'm just going to be working some more on this portrait of Christ that I've been doing. Let me just make sure that I'm getting sound. One, then the other will be working. Okay, yeah, sounds like the sound is on and everything. So if you guys have any questions, this is kind of we're doing Q&A about really ask me anything, kind of a deal. Otherwise, I'll just kind of be sculpting, and I'll try to keep tabs with what's going on Instagram as well. So if you have questions from there, you can ask those. And if you want a little bit more of a better view, then you can find that on YouTube. Somebody's asking, how do you know proportions of the sculpture? I'm very curious to know. Could you please elaborate? Yeah, I prefer to use the cranial unit canon of proportion when I'm building my wire armatures, and that's basically just a it's like a general proportions for the average individual, and it's based on cranial units. There's a video on my method for building wire armatures that goes over that measuring system, and on the Proco 3D YouTube channel. So if you're interested, you can just look up wire armatures on and Proco 3D, or just send me a message, say, hey, could you send me a link to the armature video that talks about the cranial unit method. And I just think it's a method that works really well to get the average proportions down, and then you can modify the armature based on your model, which typically the model won't have those average proportions, but there's ways to adjust your armature to get closer to that. So that's what I usually do as far as getting the proportions in place. But there's, it's kind of a tricky thing, and each person has proportions that are just slightly different, but a canon of proportion that you become familiar with can help you get in the ballpark, and you kind of start to get a sense of what feels realistic and natural if you do that after you've built quite a few armatures. Kind of just get a sense of how long the arm should be and everything like that. Somebody's saying the hands are a big. That's just the perspective. So the hands are closer to the camera, so it makes them look larger than the face on Instagram. The proportions on YouTube are a little bit better because the Instagram cam is, I think it's like 24 mil is the like standard on your phone, and that does distort quite a bit. So anything closer to the camera will look larger. But if I turn it away, you can see how the hands get smaller. Now they look smaller. Thanks a lot, sir, but I am looking at your sculpture, and I'm making chocolate sculpture looking at your sculpture, but my proportions never come accurate the ways yours do. Well, a lot of the proportion and accuracy is just experience, just building up the sculpture and sculpting over and over again. Somebody's asking what the material is. This is a non-dry modeling clay, a cheap non-dry modeling clay that I got from Dollar Tree. And then I mixed up a color that I liked, and I added just a little bit of beeswax and paraffin wax to the clay, so that it's just a little bit firmer, but it's pretty close to the clay that you can just find and you can melt it all together to get a consistent color. That's what I do with these cheap clays. There's some cheap clay from Dollar Tree, and then Hobby Lobby, Nara clay, I think Nara is also a cheap brand that I've tested both. I prefer the Dollar Tree just a little bit, but the Hobby Lobby clay, if it's on sale, can be a little bit cheaper. And so these are just very cheap oil-based clays, so they don't dry out, and that way I can use them and reuse them and make a mold. If I have a sculpture that I want to save, I need to go through the mold making process. So these clays aren't for firing in a kiln, they're just for reusing. Somebody's saying, sir, could you send me the link to understand the proportions? Yeah, send me a message, so direct message me. Just ask for the link for the proportions, because I won't have these comments afterwards. So just message me and I'll send you the link if anybody's interested in that. That goes over proportions. Let's see. So sometimes I want to make sure that I'm kind of seeing what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of trying to check and make sure that I see when there's questions or anything. But I think there's a questions, like a questions button on Instagram. So if you have any questions that you don't want to get lost, because sometimes as people watch and then leave, some of the questions can get buried. So if you just hit the questions icon, I think that helps to save them. And this, let's see, the proportions, I think this one's about, what is this one? It's like 20, it's maybe 18 inches, 20 inches, somewhere in there. So like 1/4 life size, I think, about. So this is a pretty common proportion for sculptures, for figurative sculptures. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit with this one. Somebody says, wow, thank you, appreciate it. And yeah, this point of the process is just kind of time consuming, laborious. It just takes a lot of time to work the drapery in a way that looks good and convincing, but I don't want to leave that to the end. What face sculpture technique I would request you share, like the expressions, especially the eyes and the cheek expression. Yeah, this is, I mean, I built it up using the techniques that I go over in my courses, my sculpting courses. And so if you're really interested, then you can check out the Proco 3D channel on YouTube that has all of the free lessons for the courses. There's one that goes over my 10 steps to portrait sculpting, which highly recommend. It was not as popular a video as I thought it deserved, because I thought that was something that a lot of people that are interested in sculpting could benefit from. But if you just look up 10 steps to portrait sculpting, or just send me a link, say portrait sculpting or 10 steps to portrait sculpting video, or something along those lines, to let me know you're interested. I'll send you the link to that one as well. But all of those videos can be found on the Proco 3D channel, all of the free video lessons on sculpting technique. So I definitely recommend being subscribed to that channel. And we also do sculpture competitions. We just had one, and so that's a good way to sculpt with other people and see what they're doing. Let's see. Or to just sculpt with other students around the world. And if you're interested in the sculpting courses, there's actually a sale going on now. The Christmas sale is going on over at Proco.com. It'll be through the end of the holidays, and so now's a great time to get those courses. There's a Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course, which is where I recommend most people start. This is kind of a foundation course of how to sculpt people, and then a more advanced portrait sculpting course, which goes into anatomy. It's more in-depth on the facial features, and it really tackles the portrait in a way that can help you with one of the most difficult areas of the body. And then there's also recently a hand sculpting course if you struggle with the hands. That's the latest course that I've done, and that one is also available, and those are all on sale. And you can find links to those in my bio, in my Instagram bio. It has my link tree and all the course links in there. Or you can message me if you're interested in any of the courses specifically, and I'll be happy to share that link with you. Thanks. Want to look at your YouTube channel? Yep, it's Andrew Joseph Keith is my personal YouTube channel. But then also you want to follow the Proco 3D YouTube channel, where I have a lot of the lessons, from the free lessons from my sculpting courses. And so both of those channels are a good resource. I do sculpt on my personal channel. I do sculpting, but then I also have, you know, random videos about things that I'm interested in. So some vlog type videos and things like that. So if you're just interested in the sculpting, then the Proco 3D is the way to go. It's a little bit more focused, and I've heard that with, you know, content, everybody likes for the content to be very focused, like the same content, reliably the same content, whereas on my personal YouTube channel, sometimes I just do things that interest me, and then I guess the algorithm supposedly doesn't like that very much. Somebody says share the link, and I'd like to join that course. Yeah, absolutely. Just message me, and I'll send you the link. And I'll even if you message me on Instagram, I even will share with you an additional discount code. I'm not sure if you're able to use both, but I'll share that with you. That can be used just on my sculpting courses, and that's something that I give to people that message me on Instagram. So if you're interested in the courses, there's the sale now is a good time to get them. Good time to join those. And I've been really impressed with some of the student work that I've seen recently. Students are doing really well. And let's see, I think I'm seeing that there's a little bit of the knee that should be coming forward through the drapery, so I'm going to add that in. Let's say somebody's asking, how do you decide or imagine to sculpt? I'm very interested, but my ideas and imagination are not as good as yours. Well, I think you know, just sculpt things that you're already interested in. I'm interested in people. You know, I like the study of anatomy and form and people. But as far as which people you want to sculpt, I'd say, well, think of a theme. Think of something that you care about. What are things that you find to be important and worthwhile? Whether that's a religious subject like this. I'm sculpting Christ. I'm a Christian, and so sculpting a representation of Jesus Christ as after he's risen. But maybe for you, maybe it's a political idea, concept, that you want to turn into an idea, or maybe it's a characters that you find interesting, actors or people from novels or from fiction. There are things that you're interested in, that you're just interested in. You don't have to force yourself to be interested in them or study them. You're just kind of drawn to those things. And so I'd say, if you can, when you're trying to decide what to sculpt, just start off with those things that you don't have to push yourself to do. Now, if you're able to get somebody that commissions you for a sculpture, then that's also a great way to find motivation. If there's a financial benefit to that, then obviously that's great. But that's not always the case, especially when you're just beginning. A lot of the time you have to decide. You have to just choose something and then sculpt it and build up a body of work, that's representative of what you want to do as a sculptor. But sculpting, I mean, it takes too long to sculpt things that you're not passionate about. That's something that I kind of regretted about a video, the first ever video that I did for Proco. I went over to California and I sculpted a dragon from Game of Thrones. But afterwards, I kind of felt bad because I don't watch Game of Thrones. I wasn't really a big fan, but it was something that the team thought was popular at the time. But afterwards, I was like, man, I really wish I would have kind of pushed back and said, you know what, I'm really more interested in sculpting figures. It was fine, and I was able to meet the team, and everybody over at Proco was great, and it was a good experience. But I just think that I wish I would have played to my strengths a little bit more and not sculpted something that I wasn't really connected to in any way. When I had that option, I could have, if I would have just been a little bit more assertive, I could have said, I really would like to do something figurative and something that is based on maybe it's could have still been something like a comic book character or something that's popular, but I should have sculpted something that I was more interested in and that I could have been prouder of once it was finished. Afterwards, I was just kind of like, well, I don't even sculpted something, but it's not something that I even have any connection to. So, but I mean, you don't always have to sculpt things that, not every work of art has to be something that's deeply meaningful. A lot of it can be practice, and it was good practice. But that's what I was thinking about that. Somebody says, I see. Let's see. If you keep trying, everything is possible. Yeah, that's true. Somebody says, that's great. Love from India. Hello from Iowa in the United States. You're a very passionate artist. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if I'm the most passionate artist, but I'm kind of like I am creative. Passionate. It's interesting because I just feel I'm the kind of artist where I feel like if I was doing anything else, I'd just be miserable. If I'm not doing something creative, then I just am miserable. I just hate it. So it's almost more a compulsion than like than a like drive. It's just like I have to do something creative or I'm miserable. And I think most artists, especially artists that make it, they're kind of in that category where if they did something else, they'd just be too miserable, so they decide to try to make it with art. Let's see. Somebody says, I follow him on YouTube also, but proportion in his sculptures are so accurate. I try a lot and I haven't achieved. I saw his video on YouTube and learning since he's on live. I wanted to ask. Yeah, yeah, it is tricky, you know, especially watching somebody, but you don't, you know, you watch the YouTube videos, but you don't see all of the bad sculptures that I did and everything, and so you think, oh, he just like puts the clay where it goes, but it's not that simple, and it's kind of difficult to explain the process. I try my best, and I think from what I've seen from students, they there's quite a bit of improvement if you just follow the directions on those videos, but it is, you know, it is a challenge. It's something that just requires time and effort, and there's really no cheat code to become skilled at any artistic endeavor. It just takes time. Just takes time. Let's see. I'm seeing. I'm an art student from India, and I choose sculpture. I'm learning a lot from you. Well, that's great. I'm glad that you're learning. I hope you do well. I hope you make many beautiful and impressive sculptures, because I think that that is a good for the world. I think beautiful art is a good in and of itself, creating things that are worthwhile. We need more beautiful things. I do have some reference images. You can't see them here, but I have reference images that I'm using for the drapery. It's very difficult to sculpt drapery without some sort of reference. So I do have some references. So he says he's very strong in art, but you are also great field of your own art. Somebody says, oh yeah, just people responding to other comments. Yeah, yep, everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and somebody on YouTube says, wonders of Andrew Joseph Keith. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's just time and practice. Somebody says, thank you so much for what you do. I study sculpture in Russia. Your videos help me a lot. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Sculpture. I know a few sculptors from Russia that are very talented, and I've done some sculpture competitions. Well, I didn't compete against them, but I documented a competition with two Russian sculptors, and they were very good. That was over in Utah. Says have to go by now. We'll see you later. Thank you for watching. While you watched, it's good to have questions and comments during these live streams. Somebody says, how can I have more confidence to show my work? Well, I'd say just do it. Like, just post it on Instagram. I made a decision when I started my first Instagram account, which has since been deleted. It was hacked and deleted. But the reason that I started it was I wanted to motivate myself to create more art. So I decided I would post something every day, do a post every day, and I did that for a long time, and that really helped me just produce, because I knew I had to post something, and so I would just produce a lot of work. Now, it's been a little bit discouraging when I had to start over my Instagram and everything, so I don't post as often as I used to, but I should, and it's good to create more than you consume. Lift up this part right here. And so I would just say, just do something like that. Like, just commit to posting some artwork every day and then stick to it. And if you're self-conscious, if you feel like your work isn't good enough, well, it'll get better as you just keep working on it. But sculpting fabric is an interesting thing. There's a lesson that goes over sculpting fabric in the Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course, a lesson and a master demo. But a lot of it is just finding out where the transitions happen between the folds, and there's something called the eye of the fold, and so this is an example right here where it might be where a crease starts and then the folds move out from that area. Maybe here is another example. Here on the back you can see that these are examples, so that there'd be the eye of the fold that's kind of right here, and then the fold moves out away from those. And getting the folds to blend together to terminate in the right way, in a way that's convincing, it's a tricky thing. It takes practice. And what people used to do, they used to study drapery first before they would study the figure, and I think that's a well, I'm not as interested in drapery, so I don't know if I'd recommend that. But the thing about drapery is that the forms are very organic, and so if you can learn to mimic the forms of drapery, then you can apply that observation skill and that ability to shape those organic forms. You can apply that to the figure, and so I think that's why the ancient masters would often require that their apprentices would sculpt drapery before they would move on to the figure. He says hello. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just let me know, and I will try to answer those as I'm working. And right now I'm looking at the side, trying to feel if the knee, if this feels like the right location. It's coming back. I'm imagining the hip under the surface and then the knee coming down. And just a quick tip, the distance between the bottom of the foot to the knee is about the same as the distance from the knee to the hip. So let's see, if I do that, then I feel like this right here is a little bit too long compared to this. So I might need to bring this knee up just a little bit to add a little bit of length from the bottom of the foot to the top of the knee over here. Somebody's asking, are you Christian? Yes, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's that's what I believe in. It's a great church. If you're interested in learning more, if you'd like to learn about my church, I think there's well, they're on social media. You can look up Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think there's also like a website, Come Unto Christ. Come Unto Christ is also a website that they have, and then I think it's also that on Instagram if you're interested in learning more. It is a great church, and I believe it's true. I believe that I believe Christ, that he was who he says he was. Let's see, that was a question from YouTube. Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're one of the 2 concurrent viewers, then feel free to ask questions. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions. Let's see, that knee is feeling a little bit better. Somebody says that upper arm's looking good. Oh, that's Quentin McCann. He was one of the winners of our recent online sculpture competition. Did a great job. That was fun. I'm gonna try to do more of those competitions. Let's see. As I'm moving around, I feel like this section right here is just coming out a little bit too far. So sometimes, you know, I'm at the point where I'm kind of just working all over the place. Which is sometimes a little tricky to follow. Just moving around all over. Let's see, I don't know if Quentin is still on, but I'm gonna invite him to go live. We'll see if he wants to join for a little bit. Though if he's probably doing something else. He's probably doing something. Just checking up on Instagram. Quentin says it was cool to have people all over to compete. Quentin's unable to join. Well, sometimes we'll have to do a live stream, Quentin. Or something on YouTube. I wanted to do some videos on YouTube, Face Off, where it's kind of like an interview thing with some sculptors. And so I need to get a list and figure out technically how I wanted to do that. And then we would maybe sculpt each other, or we would both be sculpting the same thing, or something like that. We're both kind of sculpting something while we have a conversation. That's something that I'd like to get going. Let's see. So I'm seeing there's kind of this fold that comes over here that I don't have represented, and some of the folds, you know, I just don't get to them. Yeah, where that knee is. But you just want to get the feeling of the folds right and kind of the general direction, and have them come together in a way that feels accurate, even if you don't have every single fold exactly as what you're observing. It's less about getting like a 3D scan accuracy and more about just kind of feeling the direction of the folds and trying to play with it in a way that feels accurate, feels convincing, like there could be a fabric that's moving in that way. And the reference that I have is, I feel like the folds come out quite a bit more than what I am representing right now. So I'm going to try to pull these out by just adding clay to the high points of these folds. and then I'll come in and redefine them. This one especially. So it says, Yebo, I caught you alive. I caught you live. Yes, yes you did. Congratulations, you made it to the live stream. You found one of the most obscure live streams on YouTube right now. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to try my best to answer those. Oh, hey Quentin, how's it going?
Pretty good. I had to change my settings on my phone so I could actually, it would like accept the request.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. How are? Do you wanna tell people kind of your experience with the competition and
Yep.
and
So, man, because this was the second year, right? Last year you did it the first time. And
yeah, I believe this is the second one that we've done online.
right. Yeah, I started the sculpture last year, but I was too busy and I never finished it. And it was just really cool to see all those submissions from all over the place. And so I wanted to make sure I didn't make the mistake I won this year. So, and it was a great pose too. So that motivated me to actually get it done. It was a fun one, and yeah, I got second place, which is cool.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun, and it's good to see so many people. I think one of the hardest things for online is getting students to actually just like sculpt, just get their hands dirty and sculpt.
Yeah.
It's hard to find the time, but I found that when you do have like a deadline or something to work towards, even if you're like, well, I'm probably not gonna like win the prize, but I can at least like submit by the deadline and everything. I think it was a big motivating factor for a lot of people to do it, which is exactly what it's for, is just like finish a sculpture in a short amount of time. And
Exactly. Like it's been a while since I've done a full figure like that, like a nude figure study, and I've been wanting to get around to doing that. And yeah, I'm glad you did this competition, so I had that excuse. And then, someone's got to win, and it can be you sometimes.
yeah, 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 yeah. It was good. There's a lot of great work, student work, and right now you're teaching, right? You teach
Yeah,
high school.
I'm a high school, public school art teacher. I teach, yeah, 10th through 12th grade, mostly drawing classes, but they allowed me to teach a few sculpture classes because they know I love sculpture. I mean, I was hired to teach drawing,
Mm.
so I mostly teach drawing. I've got a few sculpture classes, and it's a lot of fun. And my students, they knew I was doing the competition, so they're kind of it was 3 weeks, right? And they were
Yeah, yeah.
kind of watching me progress, and they kept asking like, how it went and stuff. So it was kind of fun to keep them in the loop.
And what would you like? What characteristics do you notice in students that show a lot of improvement in a short amount of time? Like, what are the things you see where it just makes a big difference, and your students that you're working with make a lot of improvement?
Yeah, there's kind of like on a personal side, I feel like the ones who are able to do that have developed their eye. They are able to catch their mistakes and then I'm kind of there to teach them how to fix it. It's harder to teach someone to recognize their mistakes, but once they can recognize it, I feel like it's easy to guide them through on how to fix it and improve it. I feel like training your eye is the toughest thing, but I found with my drawing students, we start with very simple exercises, and it helps train their eye, because I feel like a lot of students jump into something that's beyond their skill level too quickly because it's enticing, and then there's just too many mistakes at once to handle. And so we start with very simple things like little cartoon drawings until they can draw them perfectly with observation, and then we get more and more complex as we move forward.
Yeah.
And I feel like that translates to sculpting really well. It's really just about understanding if you have a line, being able to identify its length, the angle it's at, and how it's connected to the parts around it. If you're able to judge those things accurately, that's like the first step, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. And there was somebody earlier that was commenting that they watch my videos and they're just getting frustrated because their sculptures don't turn out the same way. And it's true that if you're off in every area, it's almost impossible to know where to begin to fix your problems. And so that's why with sculpting, I teach it in a way that's much more systematic. With the portrait, for example, you'll start just with the side profile, and that's all you're focusing on. After you build up the basic block end, you're just and that's something that you can check. You can
And
check it.
especially when you have stages like that, the most important thing that I feel like some of my students don't do is you gotta fix that stage before you move on. It's easy. A lot of times they'll complete that stage, but they don't stop to check for mistakes and fix it before they move on. They just complete it, and then they just move on because they want to. And that's another big thing I see among students who end up with something really good in the end. Those who don't, is you need to make these checkpoints for yourself that can be easily, analyzed, and there's objectively like a right or wrong answer, and you just gotta stay at that stage and fix it until it's right, even if it takes you forever. You gotta fix it till it's right, and then you can move on.
Yeah, that's a great point with sculpture, because the primary, like what I call the primary forms, the underlying forms, if those aren't accurate, you can't fix that with detail work or with texture. Like they're just things that need to be moving in the right direction, or else it's just painful to move on.
And on the flip side, there's always students who are too much of a perfectionist, and they've got it good enough to move forward, but they're move on.
Oh yeah.
Just sit there and fiddle with it forever, especially in an early stage.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have to go. I'm getting a call from my wife, so I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream. And
Forward.
sorry about that.
Takes experience.
Oh, whoops! Had to end the live stream on both of these. Hey, sorry, I'm doing a live stream. Let me just end it really quick.